Hi everyone, I'm Jo Barclay-Logie and welcome to another bead weaving basic here. Previously I have shown you how to do flat spiral stitch, which is this one that I'm actually wearing today. So I'll pop a link to that in the comments below here. But today we're going to look at spiral stitch, and I've got a couple of examples here to show you. So this is a necklace using spiral weave. And here's a little bracelet. I've just swapped the colours around a bit in the bracelet. It's another great technique for a beaded rope. It beads up pretty quickly and it's fun to do. I've used it in this necklace here, just so that you can see, as a rope to a pendant. So you can see how effective it is as a necklace part to a fabulous glass cabochon or a clay cabochon, anything that you have beaded around or made. If you wanted a seed bead rope necklace, this is the perfect one to try it with. Before I start demonstrating the spiral weave, I just want to show it to you a bit more up close and personal really. If we look at this piece, it's probably the easiest to see it on. You'll see there's a core of the turquoise running through the center. And those I've used size 8 seed beads, and then I've got smaller beads, in this case size 11s, forming the spiral around the core. They're like little loops around that core bead, and it might be difficult to pick up, but in the center of those spirals I've got a little gold size 15 seed bead. So I've used 8 on the core, 11 for the loops, and 15 just in the center as an accent bead. So on the necklace I was showing you, I've got like a bronzy colour running through as the core, and then I've got, again, I've used 8s and 11s here, and in this one you can see I've used 8s as the core, the turquoise, but I've also used that same 8 as the accent bead in the little loops. So it's really up to you what you choose to use. You could substitute the accent bead for a lovely little sparkly crystal, which would make a fantastic beaded rope. So today what I'm going to show you is I'm going to be using 1/8 and 2 different coloured 11s. So I have got Duracoat silver lined peach, I have got special dyed bright turquoise, and I have got matte opaque salmon. I'll be using the Duracoat Silverline Peach as my core. I'll be using the special dyed bright turquoise as my main bead in my loop, and I'll be using the matte opaque salmon as my accent bead. So to get going, you want to thread a length of your chosen beading thread. If you've watched a few of my tutorials by now, you know I use either Fireline or Wildfire. And you're going to thread on a workable length, something that you're comfortable working with. I tend to work with a double wingspan of thread, so that's fingertip to fingertip with your arm stretched out wide to the side. And I work with a double length of that, but if that's too much for you, start with something shorter and you can always add in thread as you go along. So I'm using a size 10 beading needle, but you can use a slightly slimmer one if you'd like to. And we're going to start off with the core. We're going to pick up 5 of our size 8 seed beads. Now, there aren't strict rules to this because you can make the loops bigger if you wish or narrower. It's just going to depend on what you want your final piece to look like. But for ease of the demonstration, I'm going to work in sets of 5. So I've got 5 of my size 8 seed beads, and I'm going to move them down towards the tail end of my thread. If you're going to turn this into a necklace, again, if you've watched a few of my tutorials now, you'll know I always tell you to leave about 15 or 20 centimeters, just so that you can use that tail to add your clasp in at the end. So we're going to do our first loop now. So I haven't added a stopper bead, I'm just holding those beads on my finger like so. And I'm going to pick up 5 of my main colour, 4, 5, 1 of my accent 11s, and another 5 of my main colour 11s. And these beads are going to form my first loop, and each time I make a loop I'm going to pass through 5 of my core beads, and I happen to have 5 there, So I am passing the needle through all 5. And there I have my first loop. Now, not only do I need my spiral to start spiraling, I need it to grow in length as well. So each time you've made a loop, you're going to add one more core bead. So I'm picking up a size 8 and I'm going to let that drop down all the way to sit at the top. So I've got 6 of my core beads in total now, but remember, each time I make a loop, I'm just going to pass through 5 and it will be the top 5. So in the direction you're beading, it will always, you'll start to discount these 8s at the base and you'll just be working through the top 5. So I'm ready to do my next loop now, and that's 5 of my main colour, 1 accent and another 5 of my main colour. So I'm going to discard the bottom 8 and I'm going to come back up through the top 5 8s in my core there. Let me just flip that round so you can see. And I'm going to pull my needle through, and this loop that I've just made is going to sit above the first loop I made, and you can see it's slightly up the length of the core as well. So it's sitting, there's the first loop I made and the second loop I made is sitting on top. Each loop you make is going to sit on top of the previous one. So I've added a loop, I need to add to my core. So I'm picking up 1 8 and I'm letting it slide all the way down to the rest of the core beads, and I'm ready to do a loop. So it's 5 of my main colour, 1 of my accent colour, 5 of my main colour. And I'm going to pass through the top 5 size 8s. Now, you wouldn't want your core to be a particularly small bead because it gets more and more tricky to pass through those beads. So you want a bead on your core that has a decent sized hole. So anything from an 8 upwards. So I'm passing through, and this loop I'm making, I want it to be sitting on the top. So if your thread gets a little tangled like that, I'm going to move my tail out the way, and I want to ensure that this most recent loop sits on the top of the previous 2. So there you can actually see just from there how my spiral is going to start working. So I've added a loop, I need to add 1 more to the core. I'm going to drop it down. Sorry, my thread just got a little tangled there. And I also know that my loops are always to the right. So if I was to drop it down and my loops suddenly go on the left of my work, I know that's going the wrong way. So my loops are to the right of my core, and I'm ready, if I get that tail out the way, to add my next loop. So I'm going to pick up 5 of my main colour, 1 of my accent, and another 5 of my main colour, and I'm going through the top 5. So if you need to, you just count backwards from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know I'm going in at this 8. I did say it starts to get tricky because your thread is building up through those 8s, and I can see that that one has just popped down the thread, so I'm moving it back up. That's my 5th one, the one I've just added. Pull through, and this is my 4th loop, which is now going to sit on top of the previous 3. So there are my first 4 loops. Now I'm going to do a little bit more of this, doing exactly the same thing. I'd be adding 1 to my core next before I start my next loop, but I'm going to bead a bit further on so that you can see what it starts to look like, and I'll come back. So I've come a bit further now, and you can really see how those loops are starting to spiral around the core. And if I just turn it over, you can see the core bead running through the center there with the spirals round the outside. And remember I said my loops were to the right, so if I was to continue now, I've just added a loop. I need to add in a core, let that come down to the base, and I'm ready to continue with my loops of my 5 of my main color, 1 accent, and another 5 of my main color, and I'm coming up through the last 5. Make sure that you get your needle going through all 5 of those core beads there. And that loop is going to sit on top of the previous one. And so it will continue to spiral round and round. And that's as simple as your spiral weave is. So go on, have fun with some colors, experiment with changing your accent bead. As I said before, little crystals, 3mm crystals in there look beautiful. They just add a bit of pop to your beaded rope, and either make them into bracelets or use them as a rope necklace for a pendant. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back soon. Bye.